There's a big to-do in the Afro-American Negro community regarding this Jesse Williams speech that was given at the BET Minstrel Awards. And when you look at the picture of this Jesse Williams speech from a panoramic perspective of the big picture, you start to see how much of a farce that entire evening was. Here we have a guy named Jesse Williams who no one has really heard of until right now getting a Lifetime Achievement Award. When I look at that from the panoramic perspective, it looks just like the setup that was going on with your Barack Obama back in 2004 at the Democratic National Convention. Now, at the Democratic National Convention, they had your Barack Obama give some sort of speech that galvanized people and got them all excited about him. But when we look at your Barack Obama, he was nothing more than hot air and an empty suit. And I look at this whole Jesse Williams thing and I see Barack Obama all over again. Here we have another light-skinned pretty boy being dressed up and presented to the Afro-American Negro, and the Afro-American Negro being told that this Afro-American Negro pretty boy is going to be the light and the guy who makes the big speech and gets you all emotional. But when you start looking into his background, you start going, this is Barack Obama yet again. And the sad part is the Afro-American Negro doesn't have the critical thinking skills to take a look at this guy and say, hey, this is the same Okie-doke they pulled on us with Barack Obama. Because when you look at the bigger picture of this BET Minstrel show, I mean, here we have this guy getting a Lifetime Achievement Award who is about my age, and we really don't know what he has done to deserve a Lifetime Achievement Award. Second, it's a Lifetime Achievement Award from BET. The same BET, which produces TV shows like your Love and Hip Hop, your Basketball Wives, and other assorted minstrel shows like My Baby's Mama and these other farcical shows. And this is the same the same BET, which is owned and is a part of Viacom, which is part of the Big Six corporate oligarchy that's giving this male a Lifetime Achievement Award. When you look at it from that context, you start to see how much of a farce this is. Moreover, you start to see how much more of a farce it is when you realize that Jesse Williams is an actor on where? Grey's Anatomy. Grey's Anatomy is produced by who? Shonda Rhimes. The same Shonda Rhimes who produces Scandal, the show where Kerry Washington plays a side piece to the President of the United States. This guy makes a big speech, but he doesn't say a single word about his boss, Shonda Rhimes, who produces the minstrel show Scandal. He talks about Black Hollywood, but he don't say a single word about Shonda Rhimes. You know what would have really showed me some backbone and testicles? For him to call out his own boss about the degradation of black women. And that's what the other thing that's so farcical about this. You have your same Jesse Williams sitting here making an entire speech talking about how much we need to uplift the black woman, how much we need to praise the black woman, but he's working for a black woman who is degrading black women with that farce of a minstrel show known as Scandal. And that again shows you how ridiculous and how farcical that speech was. Here we have this dude sitting on this show, working for this Negro female who has been pretty much making TV shows which degrade the Afro-American Negro female. He's talking about praising and uplifting the black woman. And this in and of itself, is one of the most farcical and most backwards things regarding that speech. And this whole thing, we have all these Negro women sitting here getting all hot and bothered, because they see this light-skinned pretty boy who, just like Barack Obama, is saying the right things to make them feel, but they're not thinking about where this guy comes from, what the context of what he's saying is, or why he is saying it. Because all they're thinking is he's light-skinned, he's pretty, he's got these light eyes, and they're getting excited over his look, but not looking at the content of his character or the context of the material he's presenting to people. When I look at the context of what he is presenting to people, you see how backwards that speech was. It was all emotion. And your Afro-American Negro woman, for the most part, she gets stimulated by her emotion. She lives for her emotion. She gets excited, when she saw him. It was no different than when she saw that picture of Jeremy Meeks, the other light-skinned pretty boy that was out here a couple of months ago. This guy who had gone out here and committed all these crimes. Everybody was like, "Oh, he's such a hunk. He's so handsome." Yet this man has tattoos. He's basically a thug. He's a hardcore criminal. Yet people wanted to give this guy a second chance. They wanted to make him a male model. They wanted to make him some sort of hunk. They gave him a pass in spite of his background. The same thing they're doing with this Jesse Williams. They're giving him a pass based on his background. And then you have these same Afro-American Negro women sitting here talking about this Jesse Williams is such a good black man, and not even knowing that they're slapping themselves in their own face, because who is Jesse Williams' mother? That's right, Jesse Williams' mother was a white woman. So you're basically saying to the world that you can't parent, because the only way we can get a so-called good black man who speaks the right things is basically if he comes from a white female, showing us how dysfunctional and backwards your Afro-American Negro is, moreover showing us how much the Afro-American Negro loves themselves, some white folk. Because that's the only reason why they're getting so excited about this Jesse Williams, because they see him as another, indirect way of getting their needs met by white people. They see themselves as getting some sort of attention by white people because this mixed race black man, is over here making a speech about their issues. The same issues that have been going on for the last couple of years that they could have done something about. Now it's interesting that, it was good that he was saying things about your Eric Garner and all these other things, but, when I look at the Afro-American Negro community, and the Afro-American Negro community could have done something about this themselves years ago. I mean, here we have, 2 years later, the same cop who choked out Eric Garner is still on the job, yet we have the same NYPD talking about they're in the Pride Parade and putting a custom police car out there, but the black community, is not calling that out. And Akai Gurley, after that case, pretty much, there's nothing more than silence because Ken Thompson has been bought off. But I look at that whole thing. He makes a speech, and everybody's going to get all excited and getting all emotional. But I look at the end result of your Afro-American Negro community when it comes down to speeches. They gave speeches at the Million Man March, about last year. And people got mad at me because I said, what is the Afro-American Negro going to do after the speech? Which was the same amount of nothing they did before. Your Farrakhan came out talking about boycott Christmas, which was a farce in and of itself, yet again. And when it comes down to this Afro-American Negro, they know how to make speeches. They know how to talk. They know how to articulate themselves. They know how to make you feel. But when it comes down to action, there's no follow-through. There's no commitment. There's no perseverance. There's no dedication. And that's the big problem with the Afro-American Negro. He'll make a good speech, he'll make you feel good, but the next day, it's back to business as usual. All it takes to shut down a movement with the Afro-American Negro is for Nike to introduce a new pair of Air Jordan tennis shoes, put them up on a billboard, or have some foreign store owner, put them in the window of his store, and that's the end of the movement. It's no different than the conclusion of the movie Do the Right Thing Spike Lee made over 25 years ago. Now, at the end of that movie, after Radio Raheem was choked out and Mookie threw the garbage can through the window and they tore up the store, Mookie goes back to the store owner, Danny Aiello's character, and he goes and he gets his pay, and he tells him up front, you're going to rebuild this place, because Mookie pretty much understands the Afro-American Negro. He knows that the Afro-American Negro was emotional. He'll go and tear up the same place. The same foreign store owners, because that's what Danny Aiello's character represented, will come back, rebuild that same store, and these same Afro-American shines will be going right back to that store to continue shopping with that very same business. And that was one of the things that, I see, prevalent in the paradigm of the Afro-American Negro. Because That's what I'm seeing after all these speeches. You had a Million Man March speech. You had Farrakhan talking about boycott Christmas. And now you have your Jesse Williams making yet another speech. And the response from the Afro-American Negro community will be the exact as Mookie back in 1989 with Sal's Pizzeria. He'll go back. He'll go back to Sal after he builds up his pizza parlor, after calling him an N-word, going back to order a slice, talking about this is the best pizza he has ever had in his life. This is what the Afro-American Negro does, time after time after time again. Because when we look at this, Shawn, from the big picture, you know, he falls for the same okie-dokes over and over again. Pretty boys come to him, light-skinned pretty boys, make big speeches, tell him what he wants to hear. They get all emotional, they get all excited, and then there's a big bag of nothing, because all some foreign store owner has to do is put some Air Jordans in the window, and the Negro stops taking any sort of action to do anything about the things that go on in his community. Because I've seen this happen just as recently as a couple of months ago with the whole case with Akai Gurley. Asian community pretty much got away with giving Peter Liang a pass because the Afro-American Negro. He got upset, he got emotional at the end of that verdict, but at the end of the day, just like the Negroes with Sal's Pizzeria, they went right back to going back to the Asian community to go buy their hair weaves, go back to buying their silky yaki, going back to buy their get their hair and nails done. No sort of consequence for anyone. And that's why nobody takes the Afro-American Negro seriously, because all the Negro does is the same things over and over again and expects change when that's the definition of insanity. Doing the exact same things and expecting a different result. Jesse Williams made a speech the same way your people at the Million Man March made a speech, the 20th anniversary, the same way your Barack Obama made speeches talking about change. Unfortunately, the Afro-American Negro cannot connect a single dot regarding any of these situations and come to understand that, you keep falling for the same okie-dokes over and over again from the exact same people who keep running the exact same plays on you. And they tell you what you want to hear, they get you all emotional and excited, and you go back to doing the exact same thing. I mean, when I look at this Jesse Williams, he's just another Barack Obama in my eyes. I mean, Barack Obama, you look at Barack Obama, and he talked about change. He talked about what we need to do. And here he is, this man who was the president of the United States. He decided, when it came down to cases like your Trayvon Martin, your Michael Brown, and even your Eric Garner, he's going to do the same amount of nothing that the Afro-American Negro is going to do. All these guys know how to do is talk, and talk in the world, as I see it, is cheap. Talk and a $5 food stamp will get you nowhere. But when it comes down to this Afro-American Negro, he's going to take that $5 food stamp without the book and try to go spend it, not knowing he's been given a bill of sale, and pretty much played like a sucker yet again. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.